Hello, this is Erick Widman from Passage Immigration Law. Thanks for joining us for our live Q&A and Happy New Year. Happy 2022. We are excited about a number of things happening at our law firm this year, and we want to make ourselves really useful with lots of webinars, lots of helpful guidance and free guides, and our weekly live Q&A every Wednesday. So we are, we're looking forward to answering questions today. We had a number of questions submitted in advance, so I'm going to jump right into those. And a common one we get, and I was asked this again, I think twice this past week. Please explain the main steps to remove conditions for a 10-year green card. So after you have received a 2-year green card, you are required to remove the conditions on that conditional permanent residence card before that 2-year period expires. And there's a 90-day window prior to that 2-year expiration where you need to submit Form I-751. And that is a removal of conditions form to get your 10-year green card. And that means that instead of a conditional permanent resident, you're moving to lawful permanent resident status, the regular LPR, as opposed to conditional permanent resident, CPR. So the main steps involve confirming that you're submitting it at the right time within that 90-day window, filing Form 751, and necessary supporting evidence to show that you and your spouse, for example, are still together. So if it was a marriage-based green card that you got, and you got a 2-year conditional permanent residence card, you are going to have to show with a joint filing that you and your spouse are still together and you have the documentation to back that up. So the typical documentation for that is evidence that you're living together, like a lease or a mortgage. In addition, pictures are always a winning option. And then other legal documents like joint tax returns or human resources documents, provide those to USCIS with your joint filing, and you'll have to unfortunately wait a long time. The average processing time is 1.5 years now, which is unfortunate, sometimes even going into 24 months, 2 years in some cases. So you'll want to be mentally prepared that it's going to take that long, but keep in mind that once you file the 751 form, you're going to get an automatic 18-month extension, which in fact, they moved to 24 months recently. So this could change again, but you're going to be able to provide proof that you're still a permanent resident, even though your plastic green card has expired. Even though plastic green card says you are, your card has no longer any validity, the piece of paper that you've gotten plus your expired green card will show anyone who needs to see it, like your boss or the airline, that you do have valid permanent resident status. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. I spent a lot of time on that first one, but there's a number of steps and it can take a while, but you can get through the process as tens of thousands of other people do every year, as long as you have the right documentation. Okay, next question. Hello, Eric. I'm at the NVC stage. I've been waiting for 4 months for an interview date at the Amman, Jordan, US Embassy. What would be the average time it takes to get an interview date in 2021 or this year, 2022? What can I do to make the process go faster if I can expedite the case? So it is possible, in theory, to get your case expedited with the National Visa Center, the NVC. We've done it for clients, and you can request it, no problem, with a couple different ways to do it. One is using the public intake form on the NVC website. That's a reliable way to do it. And one thing for context, though, to keep in mind is that COVID has slowed down a lot of cases, and there's a huge backlog. I believe the last data showed that there were 500,000 cases waiting for interviews. So a federal judge and certainly the State Department are going to say, please be patient. We're trying to hire people. We're trying to get people back in the office to do interviews. However, you've been waiting 4 months, and that is a while. Unfortunately, though, for the current status of the State Department and the immigration system, that's not an unreasonably bad delay compared to other ones we've seen. I absolutely think you should be following up, and you should request an expedite to get that move forward. But Amman Jordan is slow. They have a big backlog. They do really thorough background checks. And we filed a lawsuit against them that got some great results. But there has to be an unreasonable delay for a lawsuit to work. As far as expedite criteria, you would want to show a compelling emergency if possible. A healthcare issue is one of the most compelling criteria that you can meet. Severe financial loss and sometimes other important interests of the U.S. government. If you can connect the visa issuance to a benefit to the U.S. government. It's not easy to do. Lots of other people are also doing expedite requests, but you certainly should do it if you have the documentation to back it up. All right, next question. I sent a petition and adjustment of status application for my parents around November 23rd and have not received a confirmation yet from USCIS. They've not cashed the checks either. Is this normal? Should I try to contact them? So right now it's January 5th, my birthday, by the way, believe it or not. And you've been waiting maybe 6 weeks now. This time of the year is the biggest, and in terms of a backlog and a slowdown period, this is the slowest time of the year for USCIS. So I would encourage you that this is pretty normal to have a 6-week delay at this time of year. They should be getting your receipt notice out to you in roughly 3 weeks. And that's more average. But having not cashed the checks, this happened last year around the same time too, where it took months for many cases to have their checks cashed. Hopefully you use some kind of tracking number to confirm when you contact USCIS to follow up about your case, because your priority date will start the date that it was received there. So USCIS will deem it received even though they're sitting on a bunch of uncashed checks and unprocessed mail. So the priority date would be honored, but I completely understand why you're nervous about that, because it's a great sign if you check if the bank has cashed the check. That's an important sign that they're processing your case, because that's the first thing they do. So this time of year, it is normal, but I would call up USCIS and submit. And if you haven't submitted something before for this case, you can't do an e-request yet. So a phone call is your best bet. Okay, my parents have 2 concurrent applications, one for TPS and one for adjustment of status. Recently, we received a scheduled appointment for biometrics for the TPS application. Should we still go through with that process with the TPS, since we have the other adjustment of status application also pending? So yes, I would say it's a good idea to keep them both going. And in law school, this funny professor called it the belt and suspenders approach, the extra cautious way of proceeding. So you hold up your pants with both the belt and suspenders. So in case one of them fails, you've got the other one protecting you. So same thing for TPS. You're able to get work authorization that way with TPS, and you've already paid for it. So there's a little downside for abandoning that application besides the time that's required to go to your biometrics appointment. So if you're relatively close by to an application service center to get your biometrics done, I'd encourage you to do it. Keep TPS going, and the adjustment of status could take a while, as could TPS. So whatever comes faster will also benefit you. So yes, do the dual approach. Next question. How much time should I wait for a reply after they ask for proof of evidence that consisted of something as simple as a passport picture and proof of citizenship? So I don't have more context for these questions, but sounds like you have applied for either a green card or another benefit, and you got a request for evidence from USCIS or even potentially from the State Department and with consular processing. But you replied and you're wondering, how long should you wait after you've submitted it? After you submitted that proof, it typically can take a few months for a request for evidence to be processed. And oftentimes they don't even acknowledge that they received your submission. But you can check online, and if you have an online My USCIS account, that's a great way to see the current status of your case. All right. It's been almost 2 years since you filed your I-130, and it has not been approved yet. This is at the California Service Center, and you've made millions of inquiries and nothing has helped. That is frustrating. That's no good. And that qualifies as an unreasonable period of time that after you've taken these other steps and you followed up repeatedly, this is a great case for a lawsuit, a mandamus suit with the Administrative Procedure Act, because that's an unreasonable delay. And you can ask a federal judge to mandate that USCIS take action on your case. That would be a good next step and give you some confidence that you can go on offense as opposed to just begging and pleading and wondering and hitting a brick wall and not getting any response. That's really unfair. And that is not what you paid for when you submitted the petition fee for this. So the government really does work for us, and that's poor customer service. That is a lack of due process. So I would say contact us or another firm that does mandamus suits and get one of those filed. That is a really long delay. All right. Now this question, if I go with option 3, applying for immigrant status, am I able to still apply for dual citizenship afterwards? When exactly can I apply for dual citizenship? Well, what's great about dual citizenship in the US, it happens by default if your home country allows it. So for example, if you are British, then, and the UK clearly allows dual citizenship, you started as a British citizen and then you apply to naturalize in the US. Once you become a US citizen, you still have your British citizenship. So it automatically happens. Dual citizenship happens. You might be wondering, can you naturalize somewhere else? Maybe go to the Caribbean and buy citizenship somewhere or something along those lines. It's possible to have triple citizenship, but dual citizenship happens by default in that context, as I explained. Okay, and is there a way in which, if I go with option 2, where I live in the States for a 6-month period, I think you're referring to adjustment of status, am I able to work in the US during that 6-month waiting period? So if you're intending to immigrate to the US and you file adjustment of status, you're already here, But when can you work? When can you get your employment authorization document, your EAD? So the delays have become ridiculously long, and 6 months is the average right now for our firm and others. And we're seeing across the board, it used to be reliably 90 days, 3 months. But now, because of COVID and government excuses, it's typically 6 months that you have to wait in order to get your EAD card. And that's a big hassle. That is a lot of twiddling your thumbs and writing your novel or doing sculpture or something, because you're not allowed to work. So a lot of people, if they're weighing whether they should do an immigrant visa as a pathway to permanent residence or an adjustment of status, one of the benefits of the immigrant visa is that you immediately, upon admission into the US, get work authorization. So you're work authorized right away with an immigrant visa, but adjustment of status, you submit all that paperwork. It's taking about 6 months for your EAD to arrive. And there have been lawsuits filed for different subcategories of EAD applicants. And students, for example, were not getting their EAD cards in a reasonable time. All these F1 students on OPT, a lawsuit was filed with a favorable outcome recently. The government might have settled and has agreed to issue EAD cards faster or retroactively or quickly to these long-suffering OPT students. So action is being taken. More of that needs to happen for sure. Hello, Eric. I'm at the NVC waiting on an interview. I've been waiting for an interview for 3 months after all the documents were approved. How long do you think it will take to get an interview? So for similar to the question but earlier, it's been 4 months. That was, initially you've been waiting, someone else is waiting for 4 months. So 3 or 4 months is not yet a truly unreasonable, sorry to say. It is from our perspective, right? But from the government's perspective, from a court's perspective, it's not exceeding a year. It's not a really horrendous, unfair delay, especially given 500,000 people are in the same boat. There's hundreds of thousands of people waiting for interviews and staffing levels are down. So you should definitely follow up and seek a response from the NVC so that they confirm that they don't need any more documentation. And you, of course, want to make sure that you are documentarily qualified. That's a hard one to say. Make sure that all the paperwork that the NVC needs has been provided so that they can set up the interview. But you've probably already been given that reassurance. You probably were told you are DQ'd, you are documentarily qualified, but now you're just waiting to hear from the embassy. The embassy's excuse is a lot of people are sick, a lot of staff are working from home, and yet they still haven't enabled online interviews. That would make a whole lot of sense. The technology is good enough. Doctors are doing it. You can see from a video pretty well what's happening with the person's expressions and their truthfulness level, as opposed to the hardship caused by requiring them to come into the embassy. That'll happen eventually, probably years out. But next question, who would I need to represent me for a possible Adam Walsh case that I continue to hear is in review? So in that situation, so the government is saying, according to this law, you need to file a waiver due to this prior conviction of a certain type of crime, that you have to provide proof and that you've qualified for the waiver. And you're wondering, who would I need to represent me? Attorneys, of course. You don't need an attorney. Our firm has helped with these cases before. Not all Adam Walsh cases are ones we take on, but we've worked with some clients before. And yeah, get in touch with us or another good firm. Okay. Final question. Yes, there we go. What are the prospects for immigration reform? Yes, very, very sad, very disappointing. After 3 different attempts at getting the Senate, the parliamentarian, to agree to through the budget reconciliation process with the Build Back Better law, there were a lot of immigration provisions in that law that they were hoping to get through without a majority vote. And so all the Democrats were saying, we'll vote for this. The Republicans were saying they wouldn't. So it could have squeaked through if the Senate parliamentarian had allowed that to go through this budget reconciliation process as opposed to a regular standard formal vote. But she rejected it. I think it's good that in my view, it's a tough call, but I think it is good that we're not trying to go around her, because then people who are against immigrants will do the same thing in the future too. So I think we need to follow the rules of the referee. We just need immigration reform and need to persuade people confused about the value of immigration why they should vote for immigration reform. That is the way to go. It's hard work, especially in a really polarized society. But people, our leaders and lay people, should understand that both conservatives, liberals, and centrists should all support immigrants for good reasons. Conservatives actually should like immigration because it allows for free labor mobility. It's a free market. You should have the best qualified people in the best seats. You should allow the doctors and the laborers that we need here who are good workers, because we have jobs that we need to be filled. That'll be better for the entire country. That'll improve tax revenue. That will benefit our society in multiple levels. Also, liberals should, and they tend to more so in general already, liberals should support immigration because there are real human rights issues at play. And asylum really is a human right, and it's an international right. Biden administration and the Trump administration have been really doing a bad job at upholding the right to seek asylum at the border. It has been a travesty. It's been horrendous that people cannot come and have a chance to be heard in court to present their case. They're not even allowed to do that. And that's breaking the law. So they should be able to apply. They should be able to do that at our border. And we should figure out, not everyone's going to qualify, but we should be willing to spend the time and the money to figure out who we're going to protect. Because if we don't do that, we're going to lose our moral authority as a nation. So we're going to end right there after a lively set of questions. Thanks for some great questions, everybody. I look forward to seeing you all next week. I'll sign off here. Take care. Happy New Year. See ya.